Thank you. Would the raffle boys please come forward, Barry and Michael.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to draw the raffle now. I'm ably assisted by my colleague here, Barry. So thank you very much for your support tonight. Every little bit helps, as we all know. Okay, first out of the barrel for the whiskey is Purple E31. Now I know someone's got it because we've sold all the tickets. There's that gentleman down right at the rear there. I think coming, it's a long walk from down there. So thank you very much. Okay, next out of the barrel for either of the red wine or the white wine is B5. Green, B for Bertie, 5. Do we have somebody? Yes, we do have someone. Ah, very good. Thank you. So you can have a choice, either red or white, to claim the prize. Thanks, Darren. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we have donated by David Grodsky, one of our very prominent members, some flowers, and Mr. Greg Biggin will be conducting a very short, sharp auction.
Gardener's Corner store. First, we're going to go for the orchids, which are the yellow flowers. The yellow flowers are the orchids. We're going for the orchids. You got that? The yellow ones? Okay, should be worth $100 anyone's money. Come on, let's go. Let's go, and I've got 100 now. Thank you very much. I'll take $10 anywhere if you like. Bit of it, 100, and I'll pile it out now. At $100, and I hope someone's ready to collect the money. Is that a bid? There, Jill. No? Right. I'm a bid 100 now. Once, twice, third and last call at $100. Thank you very much. The lady over here. Righto, now we've got the azalea. Now, we must thank David Grodsky and the Gardener's Corner store. Gardener's Corner store's in New Street, for those who don't know, for donating these plants to us tonight. The azalea, yes, give him a hand. Good on you. Good on you, David. The azalea. What's that worth? 60, 70? Who's going to sell me? $70 anywhere? Got it, $70 now. Put him at 70 and I take $10 anywhere if you like. Put him at 70, 80 now. Put him at 80. Put him at 80 here. Put him house barrels, this is cheap. House barrels and buckets of blood, this is cheap. $80 here now for David Grodsky azalea. Come on. Put $80 only. Problem it out. Once, twice, third and last call at $80. 90 now. Put him at 90, thank you very much. Got it. Put him at 90. Put him at 90 with squared up money. 100, got it now. Put him at $100. Put him at $100 to get you at 110. Put him at 110 from the good judge down there. Put him at 110. 110, make it 120 if you like. Don't think of all the free feeds you get. God, strike me. Put him at 100. What am I up to? 120. I'm up to, I think. 120. 130 now. Thank you, put him at 130. 130, this only half a fee. 130. You're out now to make it 140 if you like. 140 if you like. No, it's you. 140, you're out. 140, Mrs. Trevel, 50 now. Thank you very much. 40. 140 it is. Put it 140, I'm going to double you up. Now you can square it up and make it 150. You can make it 150. That's not even half a fee. 10. 10.
Thank you, Greg, and the raffle boys.
Did you hear the raffle?
I'm sorry we've got to intrude on your eating time or your fellowship, but we have a big program tonight. We have a segment about Royce Abbey and the Royce Abbey Oration and the Royce Abbey Awards before we get to our special speaker, the Honourable Tim Fisher. Let me say just a few brief words about Royce Abbey. For those of us that have known Royce and what he's done in Rotary for 30 or 35 years, since he was district governor of this district, it really has been quite amazing. He continues to inspire and motivate Rotarians, certainly now in this country. But Royce is just one of those special people. For over 50 years, he's given a good part of his life to Rotary, and he's still doing it. But I could go on and on and on, which I won't do. I've had prepared a sheet that's on your tables, and particularly for the newer Rotarians who might ask, who's Royce Abbey? And there are many older Rotarians who don't know that much about Royce Abbey either, but it's all there on the sheet. So take it, read it at your leisure. But in the meantime, let me quote from that sheet a few of the major activities of Royce Abbey. Royce Abbey has, of course, been decorated. Royce is a member of the Order of the Australia in 1988, Advanced Australia Ambassador 1989, Officer Order of Australia 2001, Victorian of the Year 1998, and Queen's Jubilee Medal for Service to Youth in 1977. Royce was inducted into the Rotary Club of Essendon December 1954 and served as club president in 1963-64. District Governor 1969-70, a Director of Rotary International 1976-78, Vice President of Rotary International 77-78, President of Rotary International 1988-89, Chairman of the Rotary Foundation Trustees 1994-95. Royce's theme during his year was put life into Rotary, put life into Rotary, your life. And indeed, he's done just that. He was appointed Vice Chairman to the International Polio Plus fundraising campaign with a challenge to raise sufficient money to provide vaccine to immunise all the children of the world against poliomyelitis. He visited the People's Republic of China during 1977, having discussions with the Chinese authorities on Rotary and in particular our polio eradication campaign. As Chairman of the Trustees of the Rotary Foundation, he revisited the People's Republic of China on the invitation of the Minister of Health and participated in the first national immunisation campaign to immunise a record 90 million children. On the local scene too, Royce, of course, was the first chairman of the Rotary Health Research Fund. I could go on, but please, for the people, particularly those that don't know much about Royce, take the leaflets on your table. At the conclusion of his presidential year, the district governors of that year wanted to show their appreciation of Royce's leadership and inspiration. So they donated funds to what is now known as the Royce and Jean Abbey Ambassadorial Scholarship Fund. Which leads me to the next segment of the program tonight, and it will be presented by the President of the Rotary Club of Essendon, Roger Leask, who, because Essendon was really where the Royce Abbey Awards started. That was where the idea was conceived, and Roger was right behind that. He'll give a brief outline and then bring forward a past governor from Indonesia. Thank you, Roger.
Thank you, John, and welcome. Royce and Jean, distinguished guests, Rotarians and visitors. Royce, in Australian terms, we have to say, what a bloke, wouldn't we? I'd like to read a late message I got to you through me, and it reads, Dear Royce, I'm sorry not to be able to come to your oration tonight. Please pass my best wishes on to Jean. I'm still amazed that I was thought worthy enough to be granted a Royce Abbey Award. I wear it proudly to every district and important club function. And that comes from Paula Chatterton from the Rotary Club of Balconnen in Canberra. Soon after Royce completed his year as World President, a group of his governors raised $150,000 US towards a permanent fund. This is in Rotary Foundation. And this was to support Royce and Jean in launching an agricultural scholarship for students from underdeveloped countries to come to Australia and enhance their knowledge in food production. The students would then go back to their homeland with an increased capacity to feed their country, themselves, their families, and the children, and especially the children. This was Royce's dream come true. It was up and running. We have one of those students here tonight from the island of Kiribati. It's Tababoa, right there. Tababoa. And Tababoa is partway through a 3-month intensive course here in Victoria studying animal science. So far, there's been 9 students from Papua New Guinea, the Philippines, East Timor and Indonesia. And with your help, more to come. We have tonight an overseas visitor here to honour Royce, all the way from Indonesia, specifically tonight to honour Royce. Past District Governor, Willie Waguna. He's from the Rotary Club of Jakarta and District 3400.
Thank you. President Julian, Governor Bernie, Honourable Tim Fisher, past district governors. Of course, I should mention also our past president of Rotary International. And I heard you also have a district governor-elect here and district governor nominee. Ladies and gentlemen, honorable guests, good evening. Today, I'm here to pay tribute to the greatest man that Rotary Club Essendon has produced. He's the greatest Rotarian in the world and the best president of Rotary International that I have known up to today. In 1988 and 89, when Royce was president of Rotary International, I had the honor to serve under him as district governor in Indonesia. He made all the efforts to squeeze time to come over and attend our district conference out of his busy schedule. When I was approaching him, the secretary said, "My boy, you are 2 years too late. The program is full." And yet, he did come. Because of this, it made it possible for us to invite the President of Republic of Indonesia to attend our district conference and bless the Rotary Indonesia. So we had 2 incumbent RI presidents at the same time. You know why? One is President of the Republic of Indonesia, the other one is the President of Rotary International. President Suharto was at that time our president, and Rotary Club in Indonesia since 1970, when it was reopened, until 1988, so that's 18 years, was only able to produce 28 clubs. And Royce made it possible to have the clubs explode after his visit to our club from 28 to more than double, 65 in 6 months. We now have over 100 clubs and over 2,000 members. We still need Royce. He came and told us, put life into Rotary, your life. And they all did. And for that, I think I would like to present to you a token of appreciation. As your governor during that time, serving under you, Royce and Jean, may I present to you this check as a humble contribution to your very first International Royce Abbey Award. Thank you.
Can I just check it? Most times when you do a job like this, it's really an empty envelope. It's there.
Oh.
Oh, it's all right. It's going to a good cause. As you've seen, we have one participant here at the moment, and I'm sure this will add to the awards, which, by the way, has brought $52,000 into our program. Because these awards Anything on here? That's all. Can I take it? What's this? That's your check.
Royce, your very first International Royce Abbey Award. God, isn't that good? Yeah.
The implications.
First International Award. And I believe the awardee will be named later on.
Just a second. It's not signed.
I think it's a bank check. Won't be it. That's the Westpac's in trouble. The Royce Abbey Award was introduced to fill a need to recognise the newer Rotarians who have shown enthusiasm and commitment to the ideals of Rotary, especially at their club and district levels. When the award is given to them, it achieves three things. It honours, as we know, a most remarkable Rotarian, Royce Abbey. Through Rotary Foundation, it financially supports the Royce and Jean Agricultural Scholarship Fund. And thirdly, it recognises those Rotarians who show the qualities of service above self in their early years of club activities. There's a quote from Royce that I quote quite often. It's about enthusiasm and commitment. He says, "Enthusiasm turns work into fun, and commitment is the way to get the job done." And it was those qualities that propelled him as a Rotarian from Essendon to the world president in Chicago. Enthusiasm and commitment. Which I've got to add that he still has it today. And so does Jean. The contribution, because without Yeah, it's behind every good man or something, isn't it? Something like that. Every good woman is a good man. The contributions to the Royce Abbey Awards go into a permanent fund into Rotary Foundation. The capital stays there permanently and it produces earnings year after year, just like a fruit tree. The interest and the dividends from that fund pay for the Royce and Jean agricultural scholarships. The capital is kept safe to produce money each year for the benefit of the students in the future. This is a great advantage because the more that goes into the fund through the Rotary Foundation, the more it produces, and then the more it produces. And we have to thank all those club presidents who saw in their members the very qualities that make Rotary work so well, and in choosing them for the award. So we thank all the awardees for being who they are, the future of Rotary. So I might ask all the Royce Abbey awardees here tonight to stand and show me. And let's take it over. Royce has given us a great legacy. It is his gift to Rotary and the world, and the best thing we can do in return is what we're doing tonight, and that is to support his program and to encourage all clubs to do the same, because the Royce Abbey Awards helps to build goodwill and better friendships, develop international understanding, and is truly a benefit to all concerned.
Thank you, Roger. Thank you, Roger. I'd also like to mention that we have at our table here past Governor Mitch Clark, who has come all the way down from Queensland to be present with us tonight. He was also at the first Royce Abbey Oration 2 years ago. Mitch went through the same year as Governor as Royce, so they've had a very close friendship ever since. Ladies and gentlemen, I now would hand over to our President, Julian, who would like to make a couple of presentations. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman John. It gives me great pleasure tonight to introduce you a couple of members from our club. The first one joined in 2002 and has participated in nearly every Rotary function. She's joining and is one of those very enthusiastic people. He's been on a board in the last few years, and you don't know who it is, but he's had great support from Marina, his wife. And is considered to be a future leader of this club. So Darren, would you like to come up, please? Whilst Darren is making his way up, the other person who's been a very, very strong supporter of the Sportsman's Night over many years, he's joined our club in 2001. He has run the Red Cross appeal over recent years. He's organised a bowls day and has proved to be a very efficient and keen on every Rotary task that he's been given. He is also considered to be leadership material and a future leader of this club. Could I ask Jeff Cunningham to come up, please? And now I'd like to ask Royce Abbey to come forward and present the awardees. Royce.
Darren, congratulations. And Jeff, congratulations. It certainly gives me a great deal of pleasure on this occasion to be able to recognise two of your members who obviously have given so much to the club. You know, the secret of this Abbey Award that I objected to when they were bringing it together, I felt that I was getting embarrassed about the fact that the word Royce Abbey was being overrun. But the purpose of the exercise is to find fellas like you in Rotary clubs in their early days of membership who show interest, need encouragement, and in turn become permanent members of their Rotary clubs. And I think that's what's been missing in a Rotary around the world. We recognise those who have been in the club many years, but we forget those who are moving through the club but are not recognised for the jobs that they do. So this is part of that exercise. And really, I should say, it doesn't really matter who you are, it's what you do that counts, and that's what you vote in. By the way, these are pure gold. Darren, there's a letter in the package signed by me and addressed to you, and it highlights what we've been talking about tonight. I hope you'll have time to read it. Maybe, have you got an office?
I do.
Well, you never know. You may find it possible to put up this recognition, and in reading the contents of that letter, it might remind you that there are many people in this club anxious for you to carry on for the rest of your life.
St Andrews?
You know what? Interrupt people, right?
Word for word.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry about that. You can't hear at the back. Jeff, it is a great pleasure for me to do what I've just done in giving the badge and talk about the Royce Abbey Award to you. And I hope that in that same feeling that this is only the beginning of your life with Rotary, particularly with the Rotary Club of Brighton. And to say it again, it's pure gold. And I am going to come back to this club on odd times and check if you've still got it. Because we know you've sold it if
That's all it goes
You know, just to round that off, in my travels around the world, it's become known to me, and I begin to appreciate it, that it's not Rotary International, it's not the board of Rotary International, it's not the president of Rotary International that makes Rotary work. It's the individual Rotarians. Rotarians and individual clubs that go that extra mile that make it work. And each of us should be proud that we wear a Rotary badge for that fact alone. Because to the outside world, we do give an image of people doing good around the world. I hope you continue to expand your Rotary Club, both Brighton Beach and Brighton, and thank you for having this function here tonight. Thank you. What's that? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Royce. What about joining me to congratulate Darren and Jeff once more? Congratulations, Jeff. Congratulations, Darren. Well done and well deserved. I'll hand you back to our chairman, John.
Thank you, Julian. Thank you, Royce. Thank you, Roger. My personal congratulations to Jeff and Darren. We now come to the time of our special guest speaker to give the second Royce Abbey oration. I've been dealing with Tim for some 6 months now, and he's just such a laid-back guy. You ask him, does he want anything? And he says, no, I'm all right. See you on the night. Not satisfied with that, because we like to do the right thing by our special guest speakers. If you want some transport for this evening, I was going to organise that. He didn't even reply to that. Now when he gets here tonight, he tells me he came down on the train to Brighton Beach. We'll see he gets home in a limousine. It's great pleasure, and we're indeed very fortunate to have a speaker of the calibre of the Honourable Tim Fisher AC. He's been a former Army officer, former New South Wales State Parliamentarian, former leader of the National Party, Minister for Trade and Deputy Prime Minister. From August the 26th to September the 1st, 1999, Tim was leader of the official Australian delegation which oversaw the popular consultation or ballot held on the 30th of August 1999 in East Timor. In relation to many of his honorary activities, Tim has accepted positions including the following: Chair of the Australian Thailand Institute, Chair of the Australian Winemakers Foundation, National Patron of Frontier Services, and Patron of many and varied charitable organisations. He's also a Director of Australian Agricultural Company, Osmore and Australia Pacific Transport, and he's Chairman of Tourism Australia. When I asked him over several times what was he going to talk about, he didn't tell me, so you're as wise as I am. Please welcome Tim Fisher.
My real name is Samuel Langhorne Clemens, alias Mark Twain. And here we are at the end of 1895 in this magnificent city, Melbourne, to which I return having visited every state in Australia since September, when I arrived on the Warramoo from the Vancouver, except Queensland. You have to draw the line somewhere. They eat too many bananas in Queensland. And my doctor advised against the climate of going to Queensland. So it is great to be back in beautiful Melbourne. I got close to Queensland. I went as far north as Newcastle. Now that's an extraordinary town, Newcastle. It has a convict cemetery at one end with no bodies in it, and a gentleman's club at the other end with no gentlemen in it. I'm here to give a number of public lectures, to raise funds, to pay off business debts. I don't actually legally owe these monies, but I feel a moral obligation as an author of many books, Huckleberry Finn, Tom Sawyer and the like, to make an effort. And also, half of the debt is owed to my wife's family. So I've got to make a double effort to raise funds through these public lectures. And so I arrived in Sydney, had a boisterous time in Sydney. All those society matrons in Sydney, they haven't changed much over the years. And then I caught a train. A train from Sydney to Melbourne. And I write of that. Now comes a singular thing, the oddest thing, the strangest thing, the most unaccountable marvel that Australia can show. At the frontier between New South Wales and Victoria, our multitude of passengers were routed out of their bunks by lantern light in the morning, in the biting cold, to change railway carriages at the break of gauge platform. Which paralysis of parliamentary intellect dreamt up the break of gauge in Australia? I survived that. I arrived in Melbourne, but alas, your Yarra water is such that I developed a carbuncle. And I had to have the carbuncle lanced before I could resume my journeys by train to Adelaide. I ended up catching 16 different trains, I might add. And I found Melbourne a magnificent city. In preparation for the Melbourne Cup, America has nothing that can match the magnificence of the Melbourne Cup and all that it beholds. I salute the Melbourne Cup and the spirit of Australia that relates to that great racing event which stops this nation by telegraph communication. The results go bounding around the bush. It's an exciting build-up to the Melbourne Cup. Went to Adelaide. Interesting place, Adelaide. We descended and entered Adelaide. I got off the train at Bel-Air, Aldgate, and came down by carriage. There was nothing to remind one of the humble capital of yesteryear. No, this was in 1895, springtime. Adelaide was a modern city with wide streets, compactly built, with fine homes everywhere, embowered in foliage and flowers, and with imposing masses of public buildings, nobly grouped and architecturally sound. Then back to a place called Oration, and the principal of the Londonon College decided to take me for a ride out from the Horsham station to this extraordinary college in Western Victoria near the colonial boundary. We were driven out to it. It was long believed that fruit trees would not grow in that baked and waterless plain around Horsham, but the Agricultural College has dissipated that idea. Its ample nurseries were producing oranges, apricots, lemons, almonds, peaches, cherries, 48 varieties of apples, in fact all manner of fruits, and in abundance. And then on to Bendigo and Ballarat, and alas, the Master of Ceremonies at Ballarat had the hide to say, as he introduced me, I know only two things of Mark Twain. He hasn't been to jail, and I don't know why. And finally, away we went, en route to India, trying to find a young, dashing Lieutenant Winston Churchill when I get to India. He's been writing the most magnificent dispatches from the northwest frontier to the London Times. And I might add, he shows a touch of class. He took his own bathtub with the Indian Army to the northwest frontier on operations. Now that is a touch of class. I'm sure he will make a rank of British Colonel one day, but won't go much beyond that. But as I leave Australia, I do so in awe of one particular colour and one particular thing. And it is the blue hills, be it the blue hills of the Dandenongs to the east of Melbourne, or the blue hills we saw from the train window through Wangaratta and Benalla, or the blue hills of the Blue Mountains just west of Sydney. And I've written this down. It was a stunning colour, that blue. Deep, strong, rich, exquisite, towering and majestic masses of blue. A softly luminous blue. A smouldering blue, as if vaguely lit by fires within. The blueness of the hills of Australia, in a sense, bring together in my mind Samuel Langhorne Clemens, Mark Twain's mind. I feel it encompasses the spirit of Australia, as if vaguely lit by fires within, to conquer all the challenges that lie ahead for these 6 colonies as you prepare to merge in a few years' time and become the Commonwealth of Australia. I salute the spirit of Australia and say Godspeed to you all. So to the second segment, President John King. I've been getting worried I'd miss the protocols. Never. in the presence of Royce Abbey. Royce Abbey, great to see you here. 1954, he joined the Essendon Rotary Club, category of, I think, blind maker, and has not missed a beat ever since. He's walked into the cabinet rooms of governments, the Prime Minister's office of governments around the world. He's walked into East Berlin when it wasn't fashionable and very difficult to go east of the Berlin Wall, and he's made a very direct contribution to the well-being of this region of the world and the world through the huge monies he raised with regard to the polio campaign, spearheaded by Rotary, spearheaded by Royce Abbey. You can be very proud and walk tall here tonight, Royce Abbey. It's a privilege to give the second Abbey Oration, dwelling on Mark Twain, who came to Melbourne 101 years ago, and came back to Melbourne on the week leading up to Christmas in 1895. And to do so in the presence of past District Governor William Guna from Indonesia. Very generous gesture, sir, and you're coming across to be with us tonight. You're there somewhere, right here, and I salute you for that tremendous gesture. Also good to catch up with the Reverend Harlan Butterley. I met at Narrabeen Beach many, many years ago. And by the way, Twain said, or it might have been the Reverend Bill Audrey said, of the Church of England and railways in the 19th century, both have got heaps of useless Gothic architecture. Both are regularly assailed by their critics on the left, right and centre, and both, the British Railways and the Church of England, think they know best how to convey man to his ultimate destination. The club presidents, Julian. Julian, thanks very much for your hospitality. Roger and Kel, visiting clubs. Dr. Bernie Walsh, outgoing District Governor. Past Governor Mitch Clark, Rotarians, Rotary members, and ladies and gentlemen. Let me just say in this second segment, a matter which is dear to my heart. And I think it reflects the spirit of Royce Abbey. It goes right back to one of Mark Twain's most memorable quotes. And this is what he said after he went to Australia and India, but I've not yet been able to prove that he did in fact meet young Lieutenant Winston Churchill in his bathtub. Twain said, it's not what you don't know, it's what you know that ain't necessarily so. It's not what you don't know, it's what you know that ain't necessarily so. When you think about that, it leads to the need in this 21st century to maintain a curiosity and to maintain a capability to undergo the change, the ever-present change, the ongoing changes that are unfolding around this world. A 21st century which started so magnificently with the Sydney Olympics and the Paralympics and good rain seasons across most of Australia. And then we hit 9/11, Bali bombing, and second Bali bombing, Madrid tube bombings, terrorism, war in Afghanistan, war in Iraq, and it's been downhill steadily since. I want to say to you in this Royce Abbey oration here tonight, in this magnificent setting, in the Milano Hotel, just alongside Brighton Beach Railway Station. One Met ticket to prove it. But unfortunately, much as many of you might like just to say, can't things stay the same? They won't. They will continue to change. But I think what might help with all that change is to think long and hard about maintaining our spirit to work through the challenges that the world faces at one level, nation and the community faces at another level, and never say die, never give up, always, as Royce Abbey has over all those decades, keep the dedication level there and keep working forward for the advantage of person kind, mankind, womankind. And as part of that equation, as Mark Twain often extolled, it helps to have a healthy curiosity. The best mindset of a member of a Rotary Club here in Melbourne this week, and right around all of Indonesia and Australia and the world, is a level of curiosity that will keep your mind young, that will keep your motivation rolling forward. Curiosity as to why does that happen? Curiosity as to where does that come from? Curiosity to learn more about your fellow Rotary Club members. And through that curiosity, an ability to develop the confidence to continue to accept the so many changes that rain down upon us. I mean, a few years back, who would have thought ever that Pan Am and TWA would vanish from the face of the earth? Or that TWA or Swissair or Sabina, the Belgian National Airlines, no longer exists. SABENA, we know why. That acronym stands for Such a Bloody Experience Never Again. We live in a time of a great deal of change. And I want to say to Rotary here tonight, in the context of the Royce Abbey Oration, that you are equipped to be community leaders by the very commitment you enter in becoming a member of Rotary. That you are equipped to help other people manage the change which is so upsetting to so many, the depressing news from abroad and here, the drought and all, and to keep the spirit alive, and to keep working through those problems, and keep rewarding incentive to likely upcomers, as was recognised here tonight, but to keep rolling forward and to do so with curiosity, because with that curiosity you will learn more. You will, for every day, and I hope I'm still learning something on the last day of my life, because the moment you lose that curiosity is the moment you start to bring down the curtains and go into receding horizons and become a negative force rather than a positive force on your Rotary Club, your family, your community, your state and your nation. So I am just delighted to be in the presence of Royce Abbey, to salute his legend here tonight in his living presence, and to do so with that quote from Mark Twain: it's not what you don't know, it's what you know that ain't necessarily so. And but in the same way that Royce Abbey has maintained his energy, his curiosity, his commitment, his confidence over all those decades, I would hope that you would as well. The greatest story that Mark Twain told, the most extraordinary story that he told on his public lecture series for Australia, is worth just 2 minutes on, and then we'll have time for questions. He said to this public lecture at Paran, his last lecture in Australia, I can now speak of something that happened in 1870 that no one has ever heard of before. Here we are in 1895. I can tell you something that happened in part because the telegraph arrived from London into Australia only in 1872. So it was 2 years before the telegraph. And a young English dandy was swallowed up by the Society of Sydney. Dreadful place, that Sydney. And he burned all his sovereigns and he got taken to the cleaners. What do? You walk out, and he walked out towards the Gap, because that was the only place. I think one day Sydney might build some kind of a harbour bridge, but prior to the bridge being built, the best place to jump for suicide was the Gap out near Bondi Beach. And as he walked through Rushcutters Bay from the city, heading to his staff, a fisherman said, "Hey laddie, I've been holding this fishing rod for 5 hours. Please take this fishing rod and hold it. You might bring it luck, because at the moment there's an 80 shilling bonus for every shark caught in Port Jackson." Within 10 minutes, the young English dandy had landed a magnificent shark. and they cut it open and they found the victim and they found a wallet. And the fisherman said, this shark is yours, there's 80 shillings for you to claim. He said, no. The dandy said, you keep the shark, I'll just keep the wallet. Because 2 days before there'd been a shipwreck on the heads of Cape Port Jackson, and obviously someone had been swallowed up by a shark. With that, the dandy walked straight into town and around to the house of Mr. Mort. And he rang the bell of this rich wool baron. And the butler said, you can't come in all dishevelled like this. What do you want? I must see Mr. Mort. All right. And he was shown into the presence of the great Goldsborough Mort wool baron Jane Thomas Mort. And he said, Mr. Mort, I have a proposition for you. Lend me £100,000 and put £100,000 of your own money with it. So £200,000. This afternoon we will corner the Australian wool market because I know that war has been declared between France and Germany, and when that news reaches Australia, the price of wool will double. Mr. Mort said, hang on a tick. A ship arrived a week ago and the Sydney Morning Herald said there was peace in Europe. Remember, there was no telegraph existed at that time. The young English dandy said, no, here is a clipping from the London Times. War has been declared between France and Germany. How did you get that clipping? Never you mind. Okay, wait, by the way, what did you say your name was? And the young English dandy said, my name is Cecil Rhodes. I'm en route to Africa. I have this proposition for you. Mark Twain said that Mr. Mort was persuaded. He put the £200,000 out of the safe and on the table. They went round the corner. They traded on the wool market. By the sunset, they had bought all the wool available on the Sydney wool market. And 1 week later, the next ship arrived from England and war had been declared between France and Germany, and the price of wool doubled. They sold, they made a great profit, they had a great celebratory supper. They shook hands. He said, where are you going now, Mr. Rhodes? I'm going to Africa. I'm going to a place called Kimberley. And I think I might find something there. And so Mark Twain ended the story. But if you believe all that, you'll believe that Collingwood might win the premiership next year. Because Cecil Rhodes never ever came to Australia, even though Mark Twain said he did. And sent me on a wild goose chase for 6 months to prove that he didn't. God bless Royce Abbey and all that he has contributed. Good luck to you all. A great privilege to be with you tonight. Happy to answer questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tim. Well, that was different, wasn't it? We're so used to hearing Tim in a different venue to this, but he was in his element tonight, and I think he really enjoyed it. And he will enjoy surely 10 minutes of questions. Who would be the first? Roger.
Sam, in the American parlance, I think we had to say that...
Samuel, that's right. Samuel, hang on, Clements, yes. Mark Twain was, because the depth measure on the Mississippi, the name I chose to take in honour of my father, a captain on the paddle steamers of the Mississippi. Yes, Roger.
Sam, I think this is not working.
Yes, speak up.
In American parlance, I think you've done good. We're a bit disappointed that you haven't. Where is your funny hat tonight?
The question is, where is my akubra tonight? And it is safely in a hotel in Spencer Street opposite Southern Cross Station, where in the draft created by that newfangled roof of Southern Cross Station, it got stomped on, and it got blown away. It was no condition to make it down to Brighton Beach railway station. So the Kubra's around and awaits being worn at an early hour tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. Questions? So.
No. My son lives in New York and he has 2 sons and they love Thomas train man. And part of the story of the train is that the gauge of the railway line is related to the width of the wheels on a Roman chariot. Can you explain how Australia finished up with two different gauge railways?
Short version is the Colonial Secretary wrote sensibly from London to all Australian colonies and said, for God's sake, as you develop railways, we've now had the Liverpool-Manchester operating 20 years, you're about to develop Hobson's Bay and Parramatta, go with one gauge. Go with 4 foot 8.5 standard gauge. The gauge between Stockton, Darlington, Liverpool, Manchester, the gauge into London from the north, no matter that Isambard Kingdom Brunel had built 7 foot and a quarter gauge from London to Bristol to Penzance, which ultimately had to be brought into 4 foot 8.5. So far, so good. The first railway built in Australia was A.A. Coe's Colliery Railway in Newcastle in 1831. That was in standard gauge after an initial introductory period. But then our engineers got a bit excited. And in fact, we developed 22 different railway gauges. No other country in the world has developed as many railway gauges as Australia, 22 of them. And the world, of course, developed 17 gauges. The Tsar Nicholas I said of Russia, no way am I going to build the same gauge as some trumped up new Napoleon with trains. I'm going to have a different gauge to the French and Germans and the Poles so that there will be a break at the border. That decision arguably put just enough congestion into Hitler's Eastern Front supply problems as to make the difference it did in World War II. So there are nowadays, Brunel Broad no longer exists, but there's 5'6", there's 5'3" Irish broad gauge. The gauge I travelled from Spencer Street, Flinders Street to Brighton Beach is Irish broad gauge, 5'3". Now what happened was they then appointed an Irish engineer building the Parramatta Railway, Fitzgibbon. He drank too much, but he said, I hate the Brits. I'm not building British standard gauge, I am building Irish broad gauge. And so he sent a cable to Melbourne saying, please switch to 5'3" Irish broad gauge because we're switching the Parramatta line to Irish broad gauge. 2 years later, the Sydney board of the Parramatta Railway Company sacked the drunken Irish engineer, and off went another message to Melbourne, because they employed a Scottish engineer, Wallace, who said, no, we're going to go straight back to standard gauge and we will build in standard gauge. They sent a message to Melbourne saying, oh, look, sorry, we're now switching back from Irish broad gauge to standard gauge. Victoria said, get stuffed. We've already switched once, we're not switching back, we're staying with Irish broad gauge. And so Victoria built in Irish broad gauge, New South Wales built in standard gauge, Queensland in narrow gauge, 3'6", Tasmania, Western Australia, and South Australia in a whole bloody lot. In fact, South Australia employed Isambard Kingdom Brunel briefly as a consulting engineer, and so they ended up with Irish broad gauge, standard gauge, and the narrow gauge. And I have 2 posters explaining all of these. And if the proceeds go to the Royce Abbey Foundation, I'm prepared to auction them in about 2 minutes' time. Now, think of this. You have occasionally boring house guests who only speak about the weather. What you do is you put these posters on the back of the guest toilet. And it's guaranteed to change the conversation when they come out of the guest toilet if you have the railway gauge posters on the back of the toilet door. So, going as a job lot, proceeds to the Royce Abbey Foundation. What am I offered for these 2 gauge posters? Explain the Australian 22 gauges and the Great World gauges personally signed by me. Any bids? $100 in the left. Going once. $100. Now there's Mr. Buxton. He was looking promising for a bit. $110. Roger, $120 in the front. Proceeds to Royce Abbey. Up the back, yes, sir? $130 for 2 posters. Think of all the exciting conversations that wake your household. Why don't you talk about the drought or the calling wobbles? $130 in the blue shirt at the back. $130. Roger goes for $140 in the front. $140 in the front. Going once. $140 going. $150 in the back. $150 for 2 job lot posters, laminated. $160 in the front, going once, $160 going twice. Sold to Roger. Any last question? I know you're rolling on. Yes, sir.
Chairman, as a former Minister for Trade, I think a number of us would be interested tonight to have your opinion on the Wheat Board inquiry and perhaps the ramifications in the future of that said body.
Excuse me. It's a question which you expect to arise. It's not easy to handle that question in a situation like this, but it's a fair question. I certainly did a lot of work with the Wheat Board in trade missions to China, to Iran, to other places. But then I left at the turn of the century, and others. True. I'm very conscious of the date of the email traffic which has been tabled in the Coal Commission. It all started 1 month after I left as Minister of Trade. But I don't claim any particular foreknowledge. Let me make 3 sharp points. Firstly, do not believe the Wheat Board is the only one who may or may not have done certain aspects of trade facilitation. I seem to recall a switch in policy by the US administration and the White House, which suddenly opened up wheat trade to Russia. The only problem was, for about 4 weeks before the public announcement of that, there'd been a tip-off to Louis Dreyfus, to Bungie and to Cargill's, and there had been a whole lot of insider trading and a few other little cut corners with regard to that back in the 80s. Secondly, the question of single desk and the Wheat Board and the future is something the Parliament and the government and the industry has to resolve. It really is separate to what may or may not have happened with the Coal Commission. So let's divide out the decisions which now await. We should get the Coal Commission report, the government should examine that, and whatever steps that are recommended and flow from that should be dealt with by government. That's one set of issues. And then separately from that, and perhaps not in this raging drought which is decimating our wheat crop as we speak, we should have a decision on the best structure of the wheat industry and the Wheat Board going forward, and that can't be delayed too long either. Clearly, we can't say much more than that until the Coal Commission brings down its detailed report. Over 100 years, the Wheat Board has put in a huge effort for wheat growers. 20th century, throughout much of the 20th century, what is the best structure in the 21st century? Well, let's get the Coal Commission report down and then let's consider that as a question going forward.
Tim, can you answer my queries? How come the tall men of politics, Fisher, Whitlam and Fraser, have grown so much in stature since you left the House? And who's going to replace you in the future?
I got to say, I am concerned that there's a lot of greyness amongst the Parliament on both sides these days. Everyone seems to be apparatchiks from within each party. You miss Jim Killen, who used to stand up and say, "I may well be the ex-jackaroo from the outer Baku, but," and away he would go, powering through his speeches. Although one night he'd sacked his press secretary the day before. He's giving a complex speech on defence, and he got to page 17, and it was blank. And penciled across the middle was, "You're on your own now, you bastard." And Mick Young, the great Mick Young, who took off Alexander Downer in his doll's house, one famous question time, was absolutely hilarious. And the cut and thrust and colour of all of that. Well, it's for others to judge. I made my contribution over 30 years in New South Wales State Parliament and the Federal Parliament. And yes, as John Connolly allowed, I was in the Army. Some would say it was during the Boer War, spelled B-O-R-E. But I just would wish there would be a bit of more colour and cut and thrust and less set-piece spin arising from our Parliaments, state and federal.
Tim,
you favoured the single desk with regard to wheat sales or not?
I said that is an issue that should be examined, separate from the Coal Commission report. We should have that Coal Commission report and deal with that, and then we should examine and review the single desk, because what I'm interested in is what's best for our wheat growers. I'm not convinced that the single desk in the 21st century is the best way forward, but I want a bit more research done on it. But I'm out of day-to-day politics, and I've got 2 small farms. We're cutting the whole of the wheat crop this year for the first time in my life because it won't make seed, and so we'll cut it for hay, and then we'll quickly rush that hay over to my wife's cattle farm to feed her cattle because we won't make hay on her farm. That's the nature of a drought. You've got to plan ahead. It's a very savage drought. I'm mindful of Clancy, the overflow, and also Hanrahan, and it'll go from drought to flooding rains. The floods will return, even in the Maribyrnong River, with or without dam wall.
Are there any more questions?
From the ladies. One last one for the ladies.
One from the ladies. Some lady. Where's our travel lady? Tim's chairman of Travel Australia, Tourism Australia. What about our Julie? Got any questions, Julie? Yes? No?
Speak up. Microphone. Last question.
Okay.
How can you encourage people to travel either in Australia or overseas and stop buying plasma TVs from the retailers and put their money, the discretionary money, back into travel?
I love Jerry Harvey. He's both a Harvey Norman salesman as well as the owner of a magnificent resort at Byron Bay. And that's the very dilemma he faces as well. We got 5.5 million tourists to Australia last year. This year, the number won't be up very much, but there's a huge swell of bookings coming through at the moment from the USA, Germany, and the UK with the Ashes cricket. But the campaign, So Where the Bloody Hell Are You, has been bedded down. A long way to go. It's early days. It's only been out 9 months. And we're just hitting up the advertising again in Japan, Germany, and elsewhere. Over 1 million Kiwis come each year. Unfortunately, they don't know how to open their wallets. And they don't know when to go home. But they come and they're welcome. Japan inbound is soft as we speak. But what is really soft is the exact point you say. It's a contestable consumer dollar. It's a discretionary consumer dollar. And the domestic tourists, the grey nomads heading from Brighton to Burke, Baduri, Boulia, Birdsville and beyond this winter were less in number than other winters. Now, I think the spike of fuel in May, June was part of that circumstance as well. All I can say to you is we'll give it our best shot. We'll boost our marketing. We'll rebuild the Australia.com site so it's more attractive. And we'll put some effort into, for example, Canada, where we're attracting for 3 months in December, January, February each year, a whole lot of snowbirders. People who want to avoid the Canadian winter by in fact spending it here in the Australian summer. So we're getting these niche trade circumstances coming through. But as Chairman of Tourism Australia, we cannot be complacent. We work closely with Victoria and the other states. A lot more work to be done. This is a great country. If you have not been to Mildura for 15 years, for God's sake, go. You'll be staggered. And don't fret and panic that you won't get a decent cappuccino or latte or Italian meal. Stefano awaits your arrival in Mildura. But the same can be said for Beechworth. And I leave you with a thought about Beechworth. 12 years ago, it was a town dominated by a jail and a mental institution. It was a town for the mad, the bad and the sad. Enter Tom O'Toole, Beechworth baker, barefoot at the time, and he started this baker's shop, and he just through drive and determination, a bit like Royce Abbey, lifted it from nowhere to everywhere. Today, you can't get a park on a Sunday morning when it's raining because everyone's come up from Melbourne for brunch at the Beechworth Bakery. You can turn these things around. Holbrook has a submarine. They came to me and said, can we have one of their retiring submarines? I said, that'll be 25,000 truckloads. No, you can have the conning tower, the casing, the rudder, and 2 periscopes. And so they put that in a park. Kids scramble over that submarine every day of the week alongside the Hume Highway. You drove past it yesterday, Mr. Secretary. And Longreach, I think, is the best example of them all. Little Joe Maloney, Mayor of Longreach, twisted Jeff Dixon's arm. No mean effort. To persuade him to give an old jumbo to Longreach. He then extended the runway just long enough so this jumbo jet could land at Longreach but never take off again. And so sitting at Longreach is a Qantas original jumbo classic at the Qantas Founders Museum and across the roads of Stockman's Hall of Fame. And it's really put a buzz into that town of 3,500 people. It must be the only town in the world, 3,500 people, which has its own jumbo jet. And so with tourism, it's finding the twist, finding the angle. You know, Moomba had to be revitalised and rejigged. The racing carnival, big event tourism in Victoria is done so damn well. Australia Open tennis, Grand Prix, and more particularly the spring racing carnival, as Mark Twain said, right back to the beginning, he wrote in his own hand, there is no event in America or the world to match the magnificence of the Melbourne Cup. Good luck.
Thank you, Tim, for a most enlightening and entertaining address. We've got a full house here, and it's very rare that we have such a quiet audience, and particularly even with our own club. We're half the number here tonight, and we've got 200 here, and you could hear the pin drop. So that says something, Tim, and we all appreciated your contribution tonight. Would you all give Tim another hand? Now hand back to President Julian to wind up the meeting.
Thank you very much, Chairman John. Well, what a great talk. Interesting and entertaining talk by the Honourable Tim Fisher. Tim, that was fantastic. It really has to be the highlight of our year, and I thank you very much. Would you please come forward for a moment? I'd like to present you with a club tie, which is a tie that can only be worn by members of the club and speakers of the club, and it is the bathing houses of Brighton. Please wear with pride, and it's a very privilege and honour for us to present you with a tie. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank past President of Rotary International, Royce Abbey and Jean, for being here with this evening. It's been a real honour and a privilege to host tonight's oration. So thank you very, very much for the privilege. I'd like to thank District Governor Bernie Walsh and Margaret for coming this evening. Thank you, Bernie. Bernie, of course, is our own District Governor, so it's always a pleasure to have Bernie here. I won't go through all the names, but I'd like to thank all the past District Governors and District Officers for attending this evening. But I would like to make special mention, though, for Willie Biguna for coming all the way from Indonesia, and Mitch Clark from Queensland. So thank you very much. Thank you to all the Assistant Governors, Club Presidents, Royce Abbey awardees, visiting Rotarians, and members and guests. And if I have forgotten anyone, hi Mark, Mark's yawning in the background there. If I've forgotten anyone, I apologise, but feel free to take it up with past District Governor John King after the meeting, because he made up the list for me, so that's okay. I told you I'll pay you back, John. I'd like to thank David Grotsky for the flowers and plants for the ladies. Thank you, David, and the organiser of the front desk this evening. Especially we had Kerry McCausland jump in and help out. So thank you, Kerry, for doing it for us. It's okay. we enjoy the evening, but there are people behind the scenes who do a hell of work, and they normally go unheralded. So I would like to thank him this evening. Greg Biggin for the auction. I would like to remind you about the Sportsman's Night, which is our biggest fundraising event for the year. The tickets are available, they're now on sale, so please support it and please get into it. And what else do we have? We have, that's everything. I'd like to thank everyone for coming this evening, and it's been a great night, and it's been a very important night for us to be able to host this very important event for Royce Abbey. So please drive carefully, and good night.
We've got three wonderful gentlemen here. We've got Royce here. Tim, can you tell us about when you first met Royce?
It's a great privilege to have known Royce for several decades. Might have been at Parliament House, Canberra, on the polio program, and that's saved thousands of lives and really built the health of Australasia. So we can be very thankful for Royce Abbey, and he can walk tall and be very proud.
Now look, we're trying to find a little bit about Royce the man, so can you tell us a little bit about his character in those times you've known him?
He's always very punctual, polite, but I was going to say pushy, not quite the right word, determined. And that determination, that spirit of Royce Abbey is alive and well today. It's great to see Royce here tonight.
Thank you. Good stuff. Any interesting aspects about his character though that you could share with us?
Well, nothing I'd put on camera.
All right, spot on. And Willie,
yeah.
You've come a long way to be with us today?
Yes, 9 hours flight, and I especially come here to see Royce after 17 years. I'm sorry it took so long, Royce, but because of him, we have been immunizing 33 million kids in Indonesia at the cost of $11.6 million US.
That's fantastic. And what can you say about the Royce the person that when you met him the first time?
He is committed, he is enthusiastic, and he puts life into Rotary. His life and our life.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
And Royce,
you know what I ask?
I've come here in honour of you tonight. How do you feel about that?
Well, I'm, this is overbearing. So many here, number one. It's a great successful night. You had a great speaker, and I think it emphasised that if you want to go anywhere, you've got to be positive about the things you do. And I think this is what this has turned out to be. Having the awards here, to me, reminds me that that's where I began. In other words, given an opportunity and just move on. And this guy played a role when I went to Jakarta. And that because I went on an official visit. But the point is the opportunity to meet the President and to make a difference. And that's what we're all about. But really, I keep saying this, but it's important. If you play well as a team, you look good as an individual. And that's how I see my part in this exercise. Thank you.
And just one more question, Royce. In recent times, Indonesia and Australia have had troubles communicating. What was the secret in your ability to communicate with Willie and the other people in Indonesia?
Well, we ignored the politics. And we did the things that matter. and that's the people-to-people relationship, community service, and I think that's the basis of the future.
Willie, can you add to that at all?
Rotary is fantastic.
Breaks down barriers. Yeah, fantastic. Shake hands.
Thank you.
No.
Good to see you, and thank you very much. It's great to be there. And this was good that you were able to come here. Good on you.
Thank you.
Give my regards to some of those guys back there too.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm very glad to see you in good health.
Yes.
One other question, Roy. Your first international Royce Abbey awardee from Indonesia. How does that make you
Well,
feel?
that was a surprise. It made me feel good, and I didn't realise when the cheque was given what that all meant. But the fact that we've gone overseas internationally through this guy makes it even more important. And I'd like to say again, many, many thanks. I hope it's the beginning of many.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Beautiful. An autograph. Is that it? Thank you.
Go. It's pretty exciting.
This was the sort of thing that get caught up with, unprepared, not sure if it was political.
Here we go.
Okay, let's go. What's the score?
Well, look, Royce, you've got two of the most recent inductees in
Yes.
your Royce Abbey Awards. What can you say to welcome them to the exclusive club?
Well, the good thing is they're brand new, number one. They would not have been selected if the president had not done his homework and selected according to the briefing that we gave him. So all I can say is that we've got two Rotarians here that I think in the long run are going to be very effective and committed men who have come into the Rotary Club, not sure what it's all about, and stayed with it long enough to play a major role in its future. And I mean that very sincerely.
Royce, thanks very much. It means a lot to me. It really does mean a lot to me to be inducted with this Royce Abbey Award. There are lots of things we do in Rotary, and we don't do it to get recognition.
Exactly.
We do it to shine a light in a dark place from time to time, and to put our shoulder to the wheel. So thanks very much.
Yeah,
Royce.
well said.
Thank you.
Good stuff.
Thank you, Royce. I feel very, very honoured to receive this award. It's something that I love doing, and I feel almost embarrassed to get an award for something I love doing so much. And the more I'm involved, the more I love it.
Well, let me tell the both of you that when I first came into Rotary, on the second day that I turned up at the Rotary Club of Essendon, there was a guy standing there with what I thought was a Essendon badge, and he said, "Welcome, Royce." Had not seen him before. He said, "How do you like Rotary?" I said, "I've only been here a week." And he said, "Well, I am a past president of Rotary International. Come and sit with me." And I sat with him, and every time, and he made many visits to Essendon, and each time he'd say, "Royce, come and sit with me. What do you think about Rotary? Let me tell you more about Rotary." And all of a sudden, I began to be part of the exercise. And it gave me challenges that finished up world president. So, you know, those beginning days are most important. So I put a lot of emphasis on the fact of selecting people who show some idea of Rotary early in their careers, and hope it continues on for both of you. Good stuff.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Shake hands. Just to get your shaky hand. Put back a shake. Ready.
Well, we say, you know, it's easy to shake hands. You know, I mean it sincerely.
You're a wonderful guy, Royce. You really are.
Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very, very proud.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thanks. Fantastic.
Thank you.
Okay, would you like to tell people who you are to start with, Royce?
I would like something you would say.
Tell us
who are you? Oh, right.
Introduce yourself, please.
Oh, I'm Mitch Clark from Queensland. I come from Proserpine, and I'm down here for this great occasion to honour Royce this evening. We've been great mates for a little over 30 years. Rotary brought us together initially back in 1969-70 when we were both incoming district governors. We went to Lake Placid for the International Assembly, and by just some strange trick of nature we sort of clicked and stayed together all those years ever since. I've been down here on a number of occasions with Royce, and Royce and Jean have been to our place, and we've had many happy occasions together and little ventures here and there, mostly in Rotary. And we've had a little bit on the side out apart from Rotary as well. But it's a great pleasure to be here tonight with Royce again. It's really an auspicious occasion to have an Australian of the calibre of Royce Abbey, who is really recognised worldwide as one of the best world presidents we've ever had in Rotary International. Good to be his mate, good to be here with him, and it's been a great occasion tonight. Thank you very much.
Before you go, Mitch, on the personal side, seeing you've got to know Royce as friends over the years, tell us a little bit about Royce the person. What's he like when the official functions aren't on?
Well, he's a real dinky-die bloke, if I could put it that way. He has great humour, he's highly intelligent, he has a great camaraderie, and he has a great command of mateship about him, and he's always willing and ready to have a bit of a joke or a bit of a laugh, and he has such a very bright nature about him. You know, he's very, very vibrant, and no doubt about that, and I think that sort of emanates a lot from Royce. Everybody knows him, everybody wants Royce, everybody likes to have Royce with them or come to visit them or at their Rotary function and all those sort of things. But strangely enough, when I first met Royce in 1969, when we were incoming governors, we were going to Lake Placid, and we met up in Sydney, and we went to Tahiti for 4 days together. And whilst we were there, Royce had a problem with a sore back, and he suffered with that for many, many years. And he got to a stage where at Tahiti he said, "Oh, I don't know. I don't think I can make it. I'll have to go back." I said, "Oh, gee, I'm having terrible back pains and that." And I said, "Oh, gee, I think I might have to pull out." So we said, "Oh, come on, mate, you'll be right." So we mustered up 1,500 French francs to get a doctor to come to him at the hotel and gave him a spinal injection. And next morning he was feeling much better. He said, "I think I'm right now. I'll be able to go on." And he's gone on to big and better things ever since.
So that doctor has a lot to be proud of.
I think so. And we had to have a tarpaulin and muster to get the 1,500 French francs because we never had all that much currency with us, because we had to have a certain amount as a airport tax departure in those days. And we had that sort of money with us, but to get the extra $1,500 for the doctor's visit, so anyhow, we managed to get the $1,500 together, and there it goes.
And what would you like to pass on to Royce and Jean for their future?
Well, I would like to wish him a very happy life together with he and Jean while they are still here on this globe, that he continues to enjoy good health, and because he is a person of extraordinary ability, and I think in so much that it's also great to have him as an Australian as well, and I think that he'll go down in history as one of the greatest Rotarians of our time.
Thanks very much, Mitch.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Bernie, can you introduce yourself for the record, please?
Yes, hello there. I'm Bernie Walsh, District Governor, District 9800. Centred in Melbourne. We go right through Victoria, from Brighton here in the south, up through to Echuca-Moama.
And when did you first meet Royce Abbey?
Well, Royce and I met a few years ago when I was selected to be a future District Governor. I got involved with Royce, and he's been quite an inspiration to me, and quite a good friend now that I've reached the level of District Governor.
In what ways has he inspired you?
I think just his true dedication, and certainly his honesty in everything he does. Royce Abbey is as you see him. There's no pretense with Royce, and that's all you ask from any man, and particularly any Rotarian.
Okay. And now the Royce Abbey Awards are a new operation that has emanated out of our district. What can you say about their future and what they will mean for the future of Rotary?
Well, I think one of the great things about the Royce Abbey Awards is it does recognise the newer Rotarians, the younger Rotarians, rather than sort of rewarding, let's say, the old Rotarians who have been around for years. I think it's great that we are encouraging the younger Rotarians to, as Royce said even tonight, to make them very permanent Rotarians for the long term. And I think that's important. I think it's an incentive for them to do that. And to have the backing of a Royce Abbey Award, it almost guarantees their longevity in Rotary.
So you imagine they'll be around for a long time to come then?
I hope so. Well, there has to be somebody to replace me.
And the awards themselves, there'll be something that won't peter out, you think?
No, I don't think they'll peter out. Well, first of all, they're building up quite an amount of capital. And as Roger Leask has said, the capital won't be touched. We're just using the interest, and that's the important thing. So they will be there for a long time.
And how have you enjoyed the Oration night tonight?
I think the Oration's terrific. I think this is the second one we've had, and I think they're in for the long term. I'd like to see them very much as an annual event on the Rotary calendar for this district.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Good stuff.
Right across the sparrow. Clearly thinks they appreciate it. I'll get away from that.
Beautifully done, Bernie.
Okay.
Incomplete. It's very
right over the word enthusiasm.
Are you pleased? Are you pleased? It's coming out his nose.